Hi, I'm Drew.
I'm Jeremy.
I'm Kelly.
I'm Dave.
We are doing a podcast, a News from the Real World podcast. We are starting with the article Procrastination and Deadlines.
I think it's appropriate that we started with this one.
Always.
Just slightly. Just slightly.
I can only speak for myself, but I've never been a huge procrastinator. Like, I don't really like doing things the day of. That makes me way too anxious.
I find it for me, it depends on the impact it has on others. If it's impactful on others, I tend to not push things off. But if it's usually just impactful on myself, then procrastination is guaranteed to happen.
Yeah, I think the article brings up a good point about the procrastination is more prevalent when you don't really have a deadline. So if you're not relying on it, like a deadline could be either for a homework assignment or because other people need the work that you're producing. So if you have that deadline, it's something to work towards. But if you just have something on your to-do list that you want to get done at some point, I have things on my to-do list that have been there for at least a year, some of them, just because, one, they're not super important and there's no deadline on them. They're just for me, so
especially,
other things take precedent.
Especially when you have some things that have a deadline and some things that don't have a deadline.
Mm-hmm.
Always in your brain, instantaneously, the thing that has a deadline gets jumped up to you.
Yeah, I think the one thing the article doesn't talk about is incubation of ideas. Because I know when I'm working on shows or working on a drafting, for instance, I first look at it, do a few passes on it, and then I have to walk away from it for a little bit in order to, just work in the background on it. And then usually when I come to it new, I am able to hit it pretty hard and come through with some good ideas.
Mm-hmm. And that process kind of feels like procrastination, but it's almost healthy procrastination.
It's a slippery slope, though.
Yeah, it's fair.
Another thing, the article is mostly a response to a TED Talk, and they talk about, specifically on the deadline versus no deadline, the idea of, I forgot exactly what.
Panic monster.
Yeah, the panic monster. And I had never really heard that. I hadn't seen this TED Talk. But that's a really good point, because you have, even when you have deadlines, there's still the procrastination. It's not that something without a deadline you procrastinate, something with a deadline you start immediately, because that's usually not true for people who procrastinate. But this idea of the panic monster is extremely true, at least in my life, that you have something due, and it's the idea that it all gets done the night before. Obviously, that's not a good way to do it, and I'm learning to move away from that over the course of my life. But it's that panic monster that gets you to do the work.
It's something you have to train yourself to respond to.
Yeah.
It's nothing that you can go like, I'm no longer going to procrastinate starting now, because we don't change like that. It takes a while to create these new habits of actually not procrastinating.
And I'm not sure if that's coming from like from when we were kids in school, where it's like you got punished if something was late. Like this panic monster, that's kind of where it started from. Mm-hmm. Or if it's just an innate sense that almost everyone has, is like, I don't want to be late. I mean, I know I have that. I hate being late to anything.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a natural thing to not want to be later and to not turn things in later, be behind. But it's the instant gratification. He compares instant gratification. Is it Monster or is it something else? Instant gratification. Well, either way, the instant gratification versus the press to do something. Mm-hmm. And procrastination provides you that instant gratification. Also, you have to think about it in the long term to be able to not do that.
We're thinking about it not like just with projects and whatnot, but rather also like with shows. There's so many times where I've worked and you are doing something right up to the button of opening night.
Oh, yeah.
And that first curtain. And like, that's just gonna happen. Like, as much as like you don't want it to happen, sometimes it just needs to happen because people need to sleep. People need to get paid.
And that's not necessarily procrastination as much as it is just proving that there is this end of the line, huge push that everyone does that naturally comes with that.
It almost feels odd when that doesn't happen. When everything is going so smooth and so...
Wait,
and then you
think
that you forget something. Doing loading or loading trucks, it went so smooth or so quickly. You're like, okay, wait, we had to have forgotten something, so you're ultra paranoid about it.
Yeah.
Get caught up a little bit.
Well, our next article is a video. It says, "Watch Aaron Draplin design a logo in 15 minutes."
This video was so cool. I am so envious of designers or just anyone who can
get something done in 15 minutes.
Like, I wish I was better at designing logos. Like, I have a hard time coming up with what I think is a good idea. Like, I don't even know how to describe it. Like, this guy is so good at making simple shapes have meaning, and I wish I was better at that. I don't know how to be better at that, but I'm quite envious.
I think after I watched this video, I immediately thought, oh wow, I can do that. Like, he just made it seem so easy. I know I can't do that. I know I can't do it to that level and that perfection, that perfection level.
And my thought is, how many times has he done that? To the point where how many times has he just designed something?
And it's how many
years? Just like that fast.
Yeah.
To get it to the point where
probably
it's like,
all day for his entire career. I mean,
this feels
you have to know how to use the software. That's the first thing. And then, I don't know if that's the first thing, but that's one of the things. You have to be able to be really comfortable with that revision process.
Mm-hmm. That's why, he started when he was just playing with those ideas in the beginning, just working with pencil and a small notepad. It wasn't like a giant sheet, And I almost like the idea of the small notepad because then it contains the ideas of like, okay, I'm going to play with this for a little bit, but then I'm going to move on from it and glean something from that process. I'm not going to, constantly have to be referencing it.
Yeah, when you turn the page away, you don't see it anymore.
You let your mind work with it rather than constantly hard referencing something. And I think that's the key because our minds are creative. It's just trying to get beyond that point of letting it flow.
Yeah, and I liked how he started. I think the logo is for a construction company. He's kind of like, okay, so what are some words that you would choose to describe a construction company? It's like solid, built on top of one another, like bulky. So he starts kind of like with this chunky pyramid, like the first notable construction.
Long lasting.
And then from there, he kind of like slices parts off of it. He turns part of the empty space of the pyramid into the letters of the company. So I think just kind of starting with those buzzwords is a good first step.
Yeah. It's something like that I found when I was going through school. We did a lot of drawing and rendering classes, and we did like 15-minute sketches or 30-second sketches where you just see something, you just sketch and get a quick idea of it, and that way of approaching things is so foundational to this process. Because like when we're kids and growing up, we're drawing things, and there's a point where a change comes where we start looking at our drawings as not being any good anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look back at what you turned to your parents so proud of this little drawing, and all of a sudden you're like, oh no, that's not good anymore. That makes us stop drawing.
And I think to keep that skill that you have, or not even skill, just unawareness that you have as a kid that just doesn't look the best, but you still like it. Keeping that ability into adulthood is so crucial for artists to make something and say, I'm not happy with this, but I'm still going to let it be what it is.
I think especially when you're thinking about it, the idea of logos, because you're going to have to grind out, like, for each company, you're probably throwing out 10 to 15 different logos. Like,
first thing people see.
Yeah.
Because you're going to, especially when you're designing for someone, you're like, okay, well, here's an idea I thought here. Here's an idea I thought here. This is why I like this idea. And, like, that sort of is sort of, like, this might not be my favorite of the logos I designed, but you guys might like it.
Yeah.
You all might like it, and this, for that reason, is why I'm trying to make sure and give you all these options.
Mm-hmm.
And like that sort of design. Is this good? I might not think so, but they might. So like this sort of design, throw away your concerns with what you designed, everything, and just keep making sure it's like quality, but not like going too finicky and picky about it.
And knowing that there's a honing process of this idea that you come forward with, you have to be attached, invested in it enough to pour some more work into it, but not so much so that when someone says, "Oh no, I don't think that will work for us," you have to be like, "Okay, move on. Let's talk about what you really."
Exactly.
It's a stepping stones. Is all these quick little sketches are what they are.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder. I mean, we kind of incorporate the idea of a quick little sketch in TD3 when we're doing our projects. We start with sketches. It's probably slightly harder with technical design than it is with the logo, because the logo typically is shapes and smaller shapes. With tech design, there's just so many different layers potentially, but I mean, there are definitely probably ways that we can incorporate that into the work we do in terms of just throwing ideas down and then trying something else completely different.
And designers try or do it from the beginning when they're designing the unit. Mm-hmm. So finding that way to incorporate it into the structural aspects, I think, would be an interesting concept to explore.
Yeah,
I think we see a lot when we're doing napkin drawing type of things.
Napkin sketches.
Yeah, like when someone just throws you that napkin sketch, I think we see it a little bit there, because like they're going to be sort of how I kind of want this idea to be done. Like generally, I always get napkin sketches about framing.
Yeah.
But like this is kind of how I was thinking the framing will work. But feel free to change everything about it.
Yeah. Whenever we draw something up on the whiteboard during scheme.
Yeah.
Just quick guidelines of what we're thinking.
Just to
and no one's attached to it.
Yeah.
Just to start wrapping your head around the project.
Yeah.
So, like, I think sketching and designing quickly is important.
Yeah. Speaking of sketching, the next one, Leonardo da Vinci's Bizarre Caricatures and Monster Drawing. This was an interesting article. I mean, caricatures, as we know them today, are essentially, the ones on the boardwalk, let's say, the concept is that it expands one aspect of a person's identity in a drawing, and when you meet some stranger on the boardwalk who's going to draw you, that's probably not the most accurate thing. You tell them you like soccer, and they put a big soccer ball at your feet. But these caricatures that Da Vinci creates really embody that whole idea of pushing forward someone's personality in a drawing. And it was really interesting. It was really cool.
I also
or like amplifying maybe some of their unflattering features.
Mm-hmm.
I won't lie with your description. I was just thinking about Leonardo da Vinci on a boardwalk being a caricature artist.
Just sitting there sketching away.
No, I love this article because when you think about all the great masters of art, you always think that they're very serious. Their work is impeccable quality. Everyone wanted to learn for them.
Refined edge detail.
Exactly, it's all perfection. And to see these goofy sketches come from one of the greatest artists of all time it makes him more human, I think.
Yeah, it humanizes him because we as society have, because of his artwork being in museums and everything, have elevated him to such a status that he's almost unrelatable, other than the fact that he's an artist. But then seeing him seemingly have fun.
And a sense of humor.
Yeah. I think you see a lot about his personality come through in the depiction of other people's personalities.
Yeah.
It humanizes him, but it also makes him, to me, a little even further, because I'm just questioning, like, how the hell did you have time to do all the things you did? And, like, because you see the normal paintings, you see all of the designs and, like, engineering designs, you see the writing, and then you're just like, and then you also did caricatures, like, we just found this out, we already thought you did too many things, and did pretty much everything, and now you do another thing, like, I was like, it humanizes, so you sort of like see the humor and like the sort of underneath laying of just, instead of like the very refined Renaissance artist, but rather you see a little bit more emotion out of it. It still like confuses me, like, how did you do all of this? Either we're really bored or really industrious.
They had nothing else to do.
I guess.
Yeah.
What else was there to do? Get sick?
Die of the plague.
Yeah. Die when you're 30. Okay.
I don't know, Florence was hopping.
Bringing the serious level back a little bit, our next article is Las Vegas mass shooting raises new doubts about safety of live entertainment. So I think we can all agree that this is a hard topic to talk about, just in terms of the sheer loss of life. And it's scary. Like, when I heard the news, you start thinking, okay, well, when is a theater going to be hit? Am I at that theater? You know, who do I know is going to be at a theater when a mass shooting takes place? And live entertainment is one of the most enjoyable things I think you can do if you're a fan of any artwork, whether it's theater or music, and to have that kind of security just ripped away from you is deadening.
Mm-hmm. And the security aspect, I mean, security on one hand, it's feeling safe, but it's also being secure. And this article sort of talks about how to make live entertainment or concerts or things like this secure. And I mean, unfortunately, the answer is there's really no way. There are ways to prevent some aspects of there's ways to prevent some aspects of terror attacks, but if there's a will, there's a way, and unfortunately, that's kind of how things like this work. I mean, if you want to put a concert in a bubble,
enclosed arena.
I'm thinking more outside concerts, or really in an enclosed arena, and have security to the level of a presidential event. Then
every person has a background check.
Yeah, then sure, you can find a way, but even then, I'm sure people will find ways to beat security or get in there ahead of time. They're sure there are ways that if people want to create a terror attack, they will.
Really look at the Las Vegas incident. You have it where it's not like the concert itself was horrendously screw it, we don't care about security at all.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that's well without their scope, so well outside of it.
Yeah.
It was beyond their control.
Yeah, it's something where
realm of influence in that area.
Like, it's gotten to the point where it's not just you have the idea. Like, I know my theater during the summers, they do the active shooter drill, so it's like something beyond even that, where it's like, oh, someone just came into this theater.
It's like the only
violently. It's like you can't even escape it.
Yeah.
Within the theater, it's someone outside of the venue.
It's like their only mistake is that they put the venue there.
Yeah.
But
that's I mean,
that's not a mistake.
I would be surprised if there was anyone at any point that said, "Hey, maybe we shouldn't have concerts here because that hotel right there could be a sniper perch."
And any of the buildings around it could.
Yeah, I don't think that's a thought that would go. But now it's a thought. Now, if I'm at a large outdoor event and I see tall buildings, I'm like, I have no idea who's in those buildings.
And I don't know why, but so I go back to think about the what was it? It was the Virginia Tech sniper who was shooting also from a sniper perch into a campus, but we still that was years ago, and we don't think about that the same way we think about this, because there's a far more loss of life and everything. But it wasn't like.
But at the time, we thought about it.
We thought about it for like a month or two, and like what I'm saying is like as far as like thinking public events and everything having to shift, and like the way we think about it.
This is the first time that the sniper event has impacted a entertainment event.
Yeah, so I think university safety shifted at that point.
Yeah, and like it shifted, but
unfortunately, I think you're bringing up a good point, which is we kind of forget about this stuff.
Until it hits home.
Yeah, like we have a terror attack, a mass shooting, and we're really active about gun violence, and then 2 months later, things kind of settle, and the Facebook posts aren't as strong, and everything like that. And then, unfortunately, it takes another incident to bring that cause back up.
And it's honestly, at this point, with how divided our country is about gun regulations, there's never going to be an event that makes the entire country stop and say, maybe we should do something about this. As soon as Sandy Hook happened...
Well, as soon as they just glossed over Sandy Hook.
Also, as soon as, we never think about something being done until it is. Years ago, you didn't think you'd have to take your shoes off going through airport security until someone decided to try to light their shoe on fire.
Now it's like
and blow up a plane.
Now it's like a nostalgic thing. It's like, hey, remember when you could bring manicure scissors on a flight?
Right?
Well, to the same extent, like, it's sadly nostalgic to the same extent where I'm like, oh, I remember dial-up internet. Oh, I also remember being able to have water bottle on an airplane. Like, it's just saddening about how things have evolved. I'm like, I remember.
It's going to be like, hey, remember when we weren't teaching our preschoolers what to do if there's an active shooter?
Yeah.
But what's also...
Those are also, back in the day when you're training kids to duck and cover underneath their desk to protect them from a nuclear blast.
Yeah. But what's really terrifying to me is not necessarily just the events, but the way now emotionally I find myself instantaneously feeling as soon as I hear information about a new event, a new shooting. Where it's like, before, like, you're like, okay, I am feeling sad. I am empathizing with the situation. And now, more and more so these times, I'm just finding myself just feeling this numb.
So you're starting to feel desensitized.
Yeah, it's just like, another one. Like, and that for me is more terrifying. Like, it's all the events themselves are terrifying. And should never fucking happen. But what terrifies me more is how I start, like, my brain starts just rationalizing this feeling numb and desensitized about it.
It's getting to the point where a conversation could go, hey, did you hear about that mass shooting? And you could say, which one?
Oh, yeah.
Which one?
And also, for me, I question whether, yes, mass shootings have happened before, but is it the fact that social media is at the point it is, that it seems like it's so much more prevalent when it does happen, and news travels so quickly. Also, we're older, so we're going to pick up on things a lot more.
I mean, it's both.
Yeah.
I mean,
you're also like,
sheer numbers. There have been more mass shootings recently in the United States than there were 10 years ago. But at the same time, I mean, we're more aware of the details of this because of the social media and the 24-hour news cycle and everything like that. We see more about all the information. There's another article that it's on the same topic, but it talks about sort of the spot operator's experience. And he was up on a spot perch, and sort of he talks about the communication he heard through headset and what he did and different things that he was seeing. And I mean, thinking about it from a employee perspective, as opposed to like an audience perspective, where does your responsibility lie? I mean, we sort of talked about this in class, that a stage manager isn't responsible for the lives of everyone in the theater. But
you can't rely on that person that it's technically not their job to press that button or make that announcement or to, initiate the scenario, especially right now with how guidelines are. And the fact that there is no guideline for this type of event with entertainment. Does it get to the point where we have to start hiring in a crisis management team to be on standby just in case
for every show,
for all these large events?
What I'm starting to feel is like one of the things that this article and a lot of other things we're like even talking about is really highlighted is the fact that a lot of theaters brush past the idea and like a lot of live entertainment other than like maybe football games or like different games where you know you're gonna have drunk, hostile people at it. Most of them brush past the idea of like security and how to deal with incidents. They just don't like no one's thinking about like, oh, I'm gonna be doing the show and there's gonna be someone starting a fight in the audience or someone doing anything hostile.
Well, I think a lot of concerts have security. Theaters don't.
But you're not checking people's bags as they come in.
Yeah.
And
like people, like even Broadway theaters, they check your bag, but they're checking to make sure you don't have like a bottle of soda
or a big old camera.
Yeah.
Like,
the show.
They don't care about weapons.
What I'm trying to brush on is the idea is people need to start. Sadly, we need to start as an industry thinking more holistically instead of brushing over the idea of just active shooter drills. Like, okay, this is what you do, but like actually installing and telling people, sadly, this is something that's true. This is something that's happened. This is something we need to think about. Here's the best way to actually deal with it and actually get that information over where it's, yeah, we don't want this to happen, but we need to tell you because it's seeming more and more likely that this could possibly happen.
And I think it's going to be a tough fight because theater and entertainment is such a diverse and broad spectrum of what it can entail, and we're usually very resistant to a set of guidelines or standards. I mean, just look at how long it's taken for OSHA to have the impact that it has to this day in our industry.
And theater is a form of escapism. You don't want to be reminded when you're trying to go see the freaking Sing in the Rain. Like, this is what happens if there's an active shooter situation, because when you walk into a theater, you don't want to think about any of that. You want to think about the show that you're about to see.
You don't want the pre-flight speech of here, exits are here, and here.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, you'd kind of get that on a potential fire thing. And when you hear that, like you say, like in case of emergency, like exits, at least we do that here. And like when I always hear that, I think, oh, in case of a fire, but there's not going to be a fire. And I wonder
the likelihood of there being a fire is.
Yeah, but like my mindset is that's just something they have to say.
Exactly.
But I wonder if you add, there's an active shooter, like not there's an active shooter. If you add, in case of an active shooter, here are the instructions. At first, that will terrify people. But I'm curious to know if after a while it will just be sort of like, oh, okay, they say the thing about the fire. They
turn off your cell phone.
The cell phone. They say the thing about the active shooter. I know all this. And that's the terrifying thing is that could be common practice and completely normal to hear a warning about how to deal with an active shooter.
It's going to take a long time to get there, or a while to get there.
Absolutely.
Everyone doing it together.
But going to your one point within that is you said it would terrify people at first.
Mm-hmm.
What terrifies me more so than just that is that eventually it's going to get to the point where people just ignore it. The same way you were saying that you just ignore the idea of
being on an airplane?
Here, walking around.
I ignore it because I know it already.
But what I'm saying is it's going to be terrifying if that becomes a thing and then people hear it so often all the time to the point where it is.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And also it's very regional too because doing a lot of work in southern states in Oklahoma and Texas where open carry, concealed carry is a thing. I mean, it's understood that when you're doing a show, you make an announcement that there's going to be, pyrotechnics on stage because you have to plan for, okay, if we do startle someone, that someone thinks there's a gun on stage and it's real, you got to warn everyone about that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just commonplace down there because you want to prepare people who are not necessarily accustomed to the theater and seeing a gun on stage to then react and actually then cause an issue. But, it's commonplace that, you're running a show and there are guns in the audience.
Drop that gun, boy!
Right?
It's just a prop, I promise. The tip is painted orange. Nuh-uh!
Okay.
Anyway, changing subjects.
Get on to a lighter subject.
How the Supreme Court's continued misunderstanding of copyright ruined Halloween. And the good old banana costume.
Yeah.
Wait, I want to find this quote. This thing is the funniest.
At first, I mean, the headline kind of gets me because it says this. What's the techdirt.com is telling the Supreme Court that they don't understand
that they're misinterpreting the
laws and the Constitution essentially. Which, I mean, that's a bold claim for a news website that I've never heard of.
Any news source, I think.
Yeah, like, I don't know. I think there's another way to start that, saying, like, here's how the Supreme Court is ruining Halloween. If you just say that, that's fine, because maybe they are.
Or, the controversial decision that can affect Halloween.
Controversial, because technically and legally, the Supreme Court can't be wrong as
far
exactly.
As that's what I'm saying.
Until like, the law made.
How the Supreme Court is misinterpreting the law. Mm-hmm. That's not for me. That's not a great way to start an article. Because
I just think this whole thing is hilarious.
But you saw this comment as soon as they did the whole cheerleader uniform.
I know, but it's funnier with a banana.
It's definitely a lot more eye-popping.
Like, here's this quote from the Rasta Impasta legalese. Which is the
name though.
The OG banana. The Rasta Impasta's distinctive banana design is identified by a combination of arbitrary and distinct visual elements which make up its overall appearance, design, and trade dress, including, but not limited to, the banana's design bright yellow color, dark tips at the end, the lines running down the sides, and where your arm and leg cutouts are.
Trademark a banana.
Literally a banana. They're upset about where you put the arm and leg holes.
But also the color.
But also the
Kmart named my banana actually bright pink.
Kmart named its banana costume the Totally Cool costume.
That's what I think.
I mean, there is a like. If they were to have a toy banana. Like a thing that looks exactly like a banana, it's the same size of a banana, but it's plastic, like for kids to play with. And a different company made one that looks just like it. I completely understand that that's ridiculous that you would sue them for that, because you're making a plastic toy that looks like a banana. But, I mean, this is first and foremost a costume, and it just happens to be a costume of a banana. So, in some ways, sure, it's kind of ridiculous to say that only one company can create a costume that looks like a banana. But if someone were to create a really elaborate costume, like creating based off a TV character, that one company just like goes all the detail in. Well, maybe not a TV character. That's a bad example.
But the funny thing is, that can't be copyrighted.
Well, if they create create a new character, let's say, and create a full costume for that, and then a Kmart goes and creates the same thing, we would see that as more of an obvious infringement. But because it's a banana and it's something we see every day, and it's just like a simple thing that is a banana, we think it's just copying banana. But, I mean, the idea to take a banana and make it a costume and actually have it fold the same way and have the head hole be the same place.
Someone put creative work into it.
The thing is,
exactly.
You can't actually copyright the costume idea for like a new character. You can copyright the character. And the whole thing is, because this is based off of the actual lawsuit for cheerleading uniforms and the aspect of you can copyright the pattern because it was designed and it was a technical type of design.
Yeah.
It was a choice of something that's repeatable and generally doesn't change too much.
But you can't copyright using like a pleated skirt.
Yeah, you can't copyright that.
But you can copyright the entire design of the costume. Well, you can if you have a look, if you have a costume and you create a new character and you create a look for that person and you have the different elements and you say this is a finished product costume, that is copyright.
But the idea of someone being able to copy, as long as they don't name the character the same way, they can do that all they want.
Yeah, like
I'm not sure if that's true.
Like freaking GoBots from Transformers. It's just like a tweak of Transformers, but they still made them.
And the whole thing that this all brushes upon is, and like the original article, because I remember from last year, it was talking about how fashion is really an industry, and like costumes and everything is really an industry where the copyright is really iffy. Because a lot of people copy each other, a lot of people use different tweaks, different things. And this is sort of opening Pandora's box where everything's becoming a lot more iffy of like, oh, what can be copyrighted? What can't be? What is designed? Like, what turns into this is my creative input?
It's kind of like the same thing where you see pieces of clothing at like New York Fashion Week, and it's like a navy turtleneck, and then that navy turtleneck gets sold, and then it keeps getting resold by like lower quality people until eventually it makes its way to Target, and everyone has this navy turtleneck. It's still the exact same look as the other one, but it's not copywritten.
It's endeavored to be the same aesthetic.
And I think the biggest thing that gets me in this whole statement is the fact that they say is a combination of arbitrary and distinct. It's
What's arbitrary? What's distinct?
Well, it can be an arbitrary choice and a distinct finished product.
Yeah,
that's just legalese. And like the thing is, what really
it just feels so hard to quantify and make it a finite decision when it is arbitrary at the same time.
When it's the fiasco that everyone kind of last year even was like saying like this is all going to go down the rabbit hole way too fast, and I feel like that. I remember writing a comment on that. It was like, this is just the first showing of this. When that lawsuit and that basically case law got introduced, this was the first showing of like how crazy this is going to end up being.
Yeah.
Similarly, going on copyright and intellectual property, more or less, we have why LeBron James doesn't own the right to his tattoos. Again, it's just like a...
It's the artist still owns the work because of their creative design.
Right.
This one seems more cut and dry to
all of it.
Yeah.
It's just on.
And it's not necessarily when the person wearing it is profiting from it. It's when others that are creating licensing memorabilia off of that person's artwork that is on that person that helps define that person is the issue.
Like if like those fake tattoos.
The fake tattoo things, or if they're redrawing the artwork in a video game, that is using that person's artwork.
And there's the other aspect of purposely public display where it loses its right to ownership because you can get it and free access to the images of that art too. As far as the tattoo goes, because it's one of those things where you willfully display it often in the public domain, it loses its your ability to try to attack other people and say you can't actually use this imagery.
Yeah, and they're saying in this article that the nature of a tattoo is intended, or the understanding is that it's going to be displayed, it's going to be seen, but that's essentially where they say it ends unless you get additional permission from the artist when you get the artwork. Because there's certain types of contracts that when you're getting creative work done, that you can fully buy all the rights to it and you solely own it.
But nothing like that ever happens at a tattoo parlor.
Not at a tattoo level ever. Because it's not thought of as being an issue.
This is kind of what I want it to look like, and they draw you something, and then they tattoo it, and then you're like, this is my tattoo.
Yeah, this is. You think this is mine, but it's still it's still their artwork.
It's also the idea of commissioning art, though, and who owns the art that if you commission it. And I mean, we have a cut and dry answer for that, so I think it just applies to this as well.
Yeah, but when I if Dirk makes a commissioned piece for someone, he just writes his name on the back, and then it's their piece of artwork. But I don't think Braun isn't claiming that he did those tattoos on himself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I think, I don't know, it gets into a weird aspect, because first off, one person's, instead of commissioning a piece of art that you're hanging in your house, you're commissioning a piece of art that's going to be on your literal skin.
I don't think there's a difference. I really don't.
Yeah.
I do.
Because you bring up the point about it being shown in the public domain, but it doesn't matter.
Like a public piece of
it doesn't matter how well it's shown in public. It's
I mean,
whoever owns it. It's not like if it's out in the public for 40 hours, it loses any original ownership. That's not how that works.
Okay, maybe I can understand the difference if it's a public piece of art. It has name of the artwork, the name of the artist, and then it's like Commerce Bank Commission or whatever. But like with a tattoo, like no one's gonna tattoo on a little placard.
Yeah, saying drawn by.
Yeah, and the thing here it says that tattoos are equivalent to songs or paintings. Might seem strange, but legally it's relatively cut and dry. It's fixed, tangential, medium. But it goes on to say that there's very little case, reference on this because almost everything ended in settlement.
Well, there's also
there's no real concrete standing for it.
The interesting thing is, if they're to develop case law and all that, unlike songs and unlike paintings, a lot of other things, no artist is really signing their work with tattoos for the most part. You're not going to see a tattooed artist just be like, I'm going to initial this.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was just saying, but that doesn't change who owns it.
The most recognition a tattoo artist gets is if they post it on their social media or someone asks you, where did you get that tattoo?
Yeah.
And you tell them the parlor and the artist.
What I'm saying is trying to prove it and prove ownership becomes a lot more difficult.
Yeah, I wonder if tattoo parlors do anything to document their work.
It
also ensure that they know what they've done.
They do.
Also gets weird when, you go to get a touch-up tattoo somewhere else, and that tattoo artist is covering over or redoing someone's work, modifying it in some way. That gets into a sticky situation, too. Right? Could potentially.
Yeah.
But
let's keep it rolling.
Anyways, next article was one Broadway Harry Potter tickets. It's
No.
complicated.
No.
I did not.
And I don't.
No. The Chris Child is so bad. It's awful.
Did you
I've
see
heard
it or just
very
hear
different
about things
about
it?
I
True.
read
Didn't
it.
you go see that when you were in
okay.
London?
No, I didn't see it.
I read it and it's horrible. And it was very disappointing.
I hear that people love the play, but
It's foolish.
whether it's a very well written play or not, it's going to get a lot of people who want to see it. A lot of people want tickets, and
Huge
the
fan
same.
base.
Yeah, exactly. The same thing happened with the Bruce Springsteen tickets. That they created this system. It's sort of like a two-step. Two-step system where you have to prove that you're a human to get this code, and then in order to buy a ticket, you have to use the code that you got. And it's a really interesting system to ensure that you don't have bots buying tickets, so that you don't have people buying like 80 tickets for each night and then selling them.
Making a huge killing on
Yeah.
scalper tickets.
Someone doesn't set
That's
up an
so
algorithm to buy a bulk amount.
Yeah, I believe they're
Ticket
doing
prices.
that with Harry Potter. They did it with Bruce Springsteen. I think they're doing it with Hamilton in London. I don't know if they're doing it with new Hamilton US tickets. But it's potentially changing the way we do ticketing. Because, I mean, we've gotten to a point, well, I don't know if we ever, well, with online services, from the get-go, people sit at home and wait for the clock to turn to noon, and
jam it.
refresh until they get on, can buy their tickets, and then 10 minutes later, you put them on eBay for double what you got them for because they're all sold out.
Yeah.
And I mean, sure, the producing company still gets the same profits, but they don't want more of the profits to be going to other third-party people as opposed to them.
Right.
They want equal opportunity for everyone to get to
But
it.
also, I feel like part of it is you don't want the idea of someone getting gouged out to see your show.
Yeah, absolutely. The producing company wants to be able to control
They want to be the sole
how
profiter
much.
of the company.
Yeah, how much tickets cost.
But
They want to be if you are selling a product, which is essentially what you're doing when you're producing a show, you're selling a product. You want to be able to not have to compete with other people for the product that you have created, which is essentially what happens when you have StubHub and scalpers on eBay and things like that.
But I still think it's, like I said, because if you're looking at scalping, it's generally going to be more. So you're going to win the price battle on that. And as long as they bought your tickets, you don't care. You've already made your money. But I feel like it's more one of those things where it gives you bad publicity and bad sort of name in the area if you're basically constantly having people where like, it's scalped for twice the amount. I'm trying to see the show. Oh, wait, you can't because it's so expensive. Like,
Yeah,
it
that's
just
what I
puts
mean.
your name through the mud.
They want to be able to control
Yeah.
the price.
All right, and next we have Staples Center to offer complimentary sensory safety kits for guests.
Neat.
Yep.
Oh, this was so cool.
And they're seeing great results in it too.
Yeah, like not even these kits are not just eye and ear protection. They're also kind of catering to kids or audience members who are on the spectrum. So included in these kits are like little fidget toys, or like
conversation guides.
Yeah, so it's truly wonderful because crowds can be overwhelming to anyone, but especially if you're on the autism spectrum, it can be just like so much of a sensory overload that to have these little things to just focus on while you're being guided through these massive crowds I think is very kind for the Staples Center to do.
Also, with like the level of productions that have the level that productions have gotten to, I think it allows them to mute things down to the level that they can perceive it and actually enjoy some manner of it. Because I don't think anyone should be denied the experience of enjoying creative art.
Yeah. And at some point in the article, they mention how easy it is, how simple it is to create these little kits, and to it's just not a big deal for them. So so just
why not?
Why not? There's absolutely no reason not to. I think the challenging part would be the distribution of it and making sure that everyone who needs it has it, and that people who don't need it don't take it away from people that do need it. But yeah, awareness. If I hadn't read this article, I'm curious if I wanted something like that. I'm curious if I went to this venue, if it would be obvious to me where I can get something.
Yeah. I would appreciate headphones or earplugs to any live event because it's so loud.
Like that's the one thing I'm like when I think about this whole. It's as we said, like they said, it doesn't affect their budget that much. With the amount, like it costs them money, yes, but compared to the rest of everything else, it's
exactly.
Pittance. But like you look at it, and probably the hardest push is trying to convince someone that it's something you should do. Because they're like, well, now it's not necessarily the money, but it's time, and like, oh, I don't want.
Why do we have to?
Yeah,
well, I mean, even if you look at it from a pure bottom line. If you're making these things available and publicly known that they're available, you're more likely to get those people into your seats. So essentially, it's going to offset its cost in the end.
I agree.
So, why more places aren't doing this, I think, is a great question. I do see this picking up, and there are also sensory sensitive theaters that strictly cater to those on the autistic spectrum.
Yeah.
And that is, again, growing in popularity.
I think you're going to definitely see it pick up. Even now, you start seeing a lot of concert venues and whatnot that start handing out the earbuds. And I think it's going to get to a point where people are realizing either we got to start turning things down, but some people like it loud, and that's going to be a hard thing to control for everyone, because if you're closer to it, it's going to be a hell of a lot louder than if you're further from it, type of thing. So it's going to be a hard thing to control. So a lot of it, you're going to have to be like, well, we're going to try to help you tweak it for yourself.
It's educating the public and making them aware of it.
Give you the tools to make you able to deal with this the best and most comfortable way we can get.
And even just showing that this is something they're providing shows other patrons who don't need it that
it's a thing to be sensitive.
Yeah, it's a thing to be sensitive about. Because they said again, I don't know how well it would work, but they said that they post it. They have employees that will be giving it out, but then they also have it like some posts in the space. And I still don't know how well it's going to work, but for the people that do see that, it'll make them aware that hey, there's this thing that we're doing, and it's for a reason, so be sensitive to that.
Yeah, and they said they've only received positive feedback about it, and that having everyone trained on it from all the way from concessions to box office to ushers helps because it can just take noticing that someone is reacting negatively to a high stress situation and be like, hey, we've got these. This might help.
Yeah.
And I wonder how far this will go outside of the Staples Center, outside of entertainment, outside of, like, we could see it at sporting events. We could see it at schools. We can see, well, I mean, I guess it
assemblies.
But I think that this is a really great, I don't think this is the first step, but this is a great step. And hopefully in the near future, there will be more resources available to people that need them.
Yeah. Sense of building momentum behind it.
I'm
excited to see what will happen.
I'm intrigued because, like, I can definitely see this happening in sporting events and like concerts and everything. I'm intrigued about the idea of like theater itself, whether or not that'll ever happen. Because
I mean, we already kind of have that in places.
I personally haven't really seen much of examples of that, of people augmenting how we see theater.
Well, I mean, a lot of theaters have auditory assistants.
Which have come a long ways from what they used to be.
Yeah, and it helps a different population than these sensory kids. But I think there are definitely things out there that the theater industry does to cater to everyone who's coming to their shows.
I think overall, theater industry is generally fairly early in the awareness and the working with disabilities, simply because we have such a diverse group of people involved in this, in what we do, that we, as a collective, are very sensitive to a lot of these things. All
right, our last article. You can go to that. I just want to make sure I'm reading the proper headline.
Women to Watch.
Women to Watch 2017. Women Behind the Scenes. This was a really cool article. It wasn't really a narrative. It's sort of spotlighting different women in the business and sort of how they are helping and how they're making a name for themselves. It was really cool to see. One, because it's women in large leadership positions, but also just there were some jobs in there that I didn't even know were real. That were jobs. So that was a really cool article to see. I always really enjoy spotlights on people. It shows you sort of their story and different parts of the industry that you might not know about.
And nice little interviews with them. A lot of them are directors of education or development, company managers, which, it's nice to see such a large group of people that are focused on giving back, from where they are at in their positions.
I have mixed feelings about this article. Like, the initial reaction is, hooray! Women are being featured and we're being acknowledged in the entertainment industry because we actually are around. But also, boo, we haven't made it far enough in the entertainment industry for this not to be a big deal.
Yeah.
There
is always that trade-off that we're at a point where the female recognition is not where it should be. So something like this is helpful, but it's upsetting that this is helpful.
Exactly. It's like, why? We should be far enough into gender equality in the entertainment industry that a list like this is completely unneeded. Yeah. You should know about these women anyway.
It should theoretically just be people, and then have it be
people to watch behind the scenes.
And then just be an assortment of whomever.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we're still in that point where it's like, we know we need to rectify this. It's a big deal, apparently, if women are doing these jobs. It shouldn't be.
No, it shouldn't be, but I think...
Women with jobs? What?
It shouldn't be, but I think it is good to have this article. Would it be better if we didn't need it? Absolutely. But because we are still in a world where we do need it, and we do need to show everyone that this is a possibility, I think it's a really important article to show that.
I agree. And this article is very helpful and in-depth. It wasn't just like they gave a quick little blip about each of these women.
Yeah, they were all really
lengthy interviews about their jobs, how they kind of got started, their stepping stones, which, as a woman going into entertainment, is very helpful.
Talk about their dreams, their aspirations.
Yeah.
It's. I think it's very inspiring. Story. Yeah. It can be inspiring to all parties that read it, because if you look at people, if you remove the whole gender aspect of it and just look at it as people who have pushed forward in their career and are at a great place in their career.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I read it.
Yeah, and that's how you should read it.
Yeah.
And I think having that inspiration of these are where people see their careers going from where they are, from where they were, is a little uplifting.
Mm-hmm. That point, I always like. To that point of this, I would agree. They're always like spotlight articles are always interesting because every time you sort of start like unmotivated to do something because everything's just sort of grinding down, you're just like, how did someone else get through this? How did someone else sort of push themselves past that sort of like I hit the wall mentality?
Yeah.
And every now and then you'll find like that tidbit of someone's like, what was the hardest thing you ever found? I was like, oh. Okay, you were there too.
Yeah. It's also cool to hear what people say and how much it relates to me. I'm like, oh wow, I've had that same thought, or I've had that same aspiration. So it was really cool.
Yeah. How many aspirations have
you? Quite a few.
At least one.
At least one a few times.
So I think overall good cluster of articles.
Good smattering. Some highs, some lows, some
bananas.
Some bananas in there.
Some doodles.
Yeah.
Some Leonardo da Vinci going bananas.
Yep.
So
this has been our podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Cheers.